What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. We are here breaking down this Thursday Night Football Showdown slate for DraftKings and FanDuel. And on paper, this one looks pretty solid, although the Buccaneers have been struggling with the Panthers and the Steelers the past 2 weeks, so maybe it won't be as good as I think. But we have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game that does look pretty solid, a 45.5 point over-under, and a 1.5 point spread in Tampa Bay, and lots of fun players to talk about. Both quarterbacks are going to be interesting, and lots of good skill position players as well, so it should be a good time. And if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel, and specifically for these showdown videos, what we do here is we break down the entire slate position by position, kind of order it by team, so we're nice and orderly here. We build a lineup as we progress through it, more so for a single entry tournament build, and then I run the optimizer at the end with the ownership projections and projections I have set in place as of right now on Wednesday morning. And if that sounds great to you, the one thing you can do in return, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And as always, we will start with the quarterback position, and also if you do want access to this sheet, the projections, the optimizer that I'm going to run at the end of this video, Discord community, and much, much more. I do cover the NBA each and every single day. Link is down below in the description for that. I know it's the end of the month, but the way Patreon works now, they changed it to a 30-day cycle instead of the first of the month. So check it out if you want. Link is down below. But anyway, let's talk about some quarterbacks here. We have two fun ones, although Tom Brady obviously has not looked that great in recent weeks, but we do have Lamar Jackson here. $11,800 on DraftKings, $17,500 over on FanDuel. The most expensive player on the slate, but don't think we should be too surprised about that. But he gets a matchup here versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who do have a solid defense, but we can't get too picky on a showdown slate here. And it's Lamar Jackson. Every single time Lamar is on a showdown slate, he's always going to be a very polarizing figure because he can always break it, always score you 30-plus points with what he can do on the ground by himself. And that kind of comes into where I always talk about when it comes to pocket passers versus mobile quarterbacks on showdown slates, because at the captain spot, if they're a pocket passer, yes, they can still put up massive fantasy points, but they have to rely on other people to get them there. So that's why I usually try to, shift towards maybe the wide receivers for that guy, which I will do for Tom Brady on this slate. But with a guy like Lamar, I'm more inclined to play in the captain spot because he can go off by himself on the ground, kind of what we saw with Justin Fields on Thursday. So for Lamar, he's going to be the top captain option, and obviously he's going to be the top flex option as well. I know he's the most expensive, but he's going to project the best, and it's hard not to like him. The touchdowns were really there at the early portion of the season. They've kind of trailed off a little bit, but still having a great year fantasy-wise. Just under 200 passing yards per game, just under 2 passing touchdowns. But the real reason why we like Lamar is what he can do with his feet. 72 rushing yards per game, 7 design runs per game. Hasn't really blown it out in the rushing touchdown department this year, but I think at some point that will come. But hard not to like Lamar here. He's sure to do a lot of damage, and it's not a matter of if you want to play Lamar, it's a matter of how much and how much in the captain spot. And we'll kind of talk about that once we see what the optimizer likes later on. Then for Tom Brady, $10,000. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense. Hopefully they can bounce back at some point, but it's a decent matchup as a quarterback versus this Ravens defense. Another 8th DVOA versus the pass, but they're also 26 versus fantasy quarterbacks. And Brady's got some great options to get the ball to in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, so it's very easy to correlate your lineups with those two because you really know where the ball is going to go. But the touchdowns have been really lacking for Tom Brady this season. He actually has less passing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson this year, which I'm not sure a lot of people would have expected at this point of the season. Like 1.1 passing touchdowns per game, but nearly 300 passing yards, but only 6.6 yards per attempt. A lot of dump offs to the running backs, but throwing the ball nearly 40 times per game. And you get absolutely zero rushing upside with Tom Brady, as he's averaging less than 0 rushing yards per game this year. So that's kind of why with Lamar, you can captain him easy because he can get you those 100 yards on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns. Tom Brady, for him to have a great game, that means a guy like Chris Godwin or Mike Evans has to have a great game as well, and they're cheaper, so I think it makes more sense to plug those guys in as captains over Brady. And moving over to our lineup, since everyone and their mother is going to play Lamar Jackson in the captain spot, maybe not everybody, if he's going to be the most popular captain though, let's just plug him in the flex spot here, and we'll try to find a different captain to save us some money. And I would really like to get both quarterbacks in, so we're just going to plug them both. And yes, that does eat up a lot of our salary, but we still have over $7,000 left per player. If we go with a bit of a cheaper captain, I think we can make that work easily. And moving on to running backs, we'll start with the Buccaneers here first, which consist of basically 2 guys we have to worry about getting significant snaps. We have Leonard Fournette, $8,800 on DraftKings, and then Rachaad White at $4,800. Now, last week, we actually saw the snaps increase a lot for Rachaad White. He got in over, I believe, 40% of the time. Fournette was down to 60% of the snaps. Sorry if you heard that dog bark. I guess he was really excited about Rachaad White getting some extra snaps. But either way, I like the price on both of these guys. I do have Fournette projected better, obviously, and he always gets a lot of dump offs from Tom Brady, but he has not been efficient on the ground whatsoever this year. But the same can be said for Rachaad White. Fournette sitting at 3.5 yards per carry, White sitting at 2.7. But Fournette's going to be the volume back here. And if they get it on the goal line, he's more than likely going to be the guy that's able to plunge it in. But if you were just looking for volume and a guy that can catch passes, Fournette's going to be your guy. I mean, a 13.5% target share and a team that throws the ball nearly 40 times per game, and he's averaging around 15 rushing attempts per game. So you're more than likely looking at around 20 some opportunities and some goal line work. So Fournette at that price point does look pretty good. I thought he was going to be a little bit more expensive, and White's going to be viable as well. And then moving on to the Ravens side of things, it's a bit murky here. Obviously, no J.K. Dobbins, although we did have a guy kind of break out last week in his return to action. Gus Edwards at $7,600. Had 16 carries, got 2 touchdowns, 4.1 yards per carry, 66 rushing yards. Overall, a pretty good day, and he was a very hot commodity on the waiver wire. Actually, someone spent $51 in my league for him this morning. Seems a bit much, but whatever makes people happy. But we had 3 guys play around 30% of the snaps. Obviously, Ricard's there too, but it's just not someone that you really count on getting the ball too much. Maybe a carry, maybe a random target here or there, but not anything that's consistent. But you have Kenyon Drake, Justice Hill, all these guys still around 30% of the snaps, although it seems like there's a clear lead back with Gus Edwards, but keep in mind Lamar Jackson's there too, who's kind of part-time running back. So there's 4 guys that could get the ball here. It's kind of messy. Whoever scores the touchdown will be viable, but if they don't score touchdowns, well, you're probably not going to be too happy with the outputs. So I would say it's more so of a who fits my lineup the best kind of thing. And then moving back over to our lineup, there's a couple of options we could go with, although I don't really feel that comfortable with any of the Ravens running backs, especially for a single entry. If I'm playing 20, if I'm playing 150, sure, I'll start filtering those guys in. But for a single entry, I don't know. I just don't really feel that great about it, especially the price point on Edwards. We'll see. I mean, if he plunges into the end zone again twice, yeah, he'll be a pretty good play, but I'm not sure we can count on that happening, especially since Lamar could always steal some rushing touchdowns. So I'm going to side with just Fournette here. I like the price point, $800. The volume is safe. He gets passing work, and obviously it's going to be a touchdown threat. So we're going to plug him in. We still have just under $6,500 left. We're probably going to have to get a pass catcher of either Lamar Jackson or Tom Brady in the captain spot here. I think that would make the most sense. And then moving on to the wide receivers, we have a very long list of plays here, but we're going to start with the Buccaneers group here first, which is basically a 2-man show of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but then also Russell Gage gets a decent amount of snaps. Julio Jones, he never plays, although there's a chance he could this weekend, so keep that in mind at $5,400. And then we have a couple of other guys, Rashad Perriman at $1,200. We have Jalen Darden, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, at $200 flat. And then I think I missed Scotty Miller there at $3,200. But lots of mouths to feed, but really only 2 are the ones you can count on the most. And if you're looking at the target distribution here this season, 7.5 targets per game for Mike Evans. That's just under a 20% target share, but also a 34% market share of the team's air yards. Chris Godwin sitting at nearly 8.5 targets per game on a 20.5% target share. I would say he's always the more safer, consistent option between the 2, but Mike Evans has that extremely high ceiling, which is always going to be very appealing for tournaments. If you remember the last time Mike Evans was on a showdown slate versus, I believe it was the Chiefs, he went absolutely nuclear, and you had to have him to have any chance of taking down a contest. Russell Gage, he gets a nice amount of targets for his price point. He's sitting just under 6 targets per game at the 14% target share. Julio Jones, we'll see if he plays. I mean, very small sample size on him this year, but 3.5 targets per game. Scotty Miller at just under 4.5. Perriman at 2.6, although I want to say he had 0 targets last week. And then Darden, we'll be lucky if he even sees the sees the target. But really, it's just a matter of who fits my lineup here. I am fine with really any of these options. I would love to get Big Mike in, but in the lineup we're building specifically, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford him, because I think even if I put Chris Godwin in, we're kind of running out of money quite quickly. But I like him a lot. I think at that price point, Godwin's going to be extremely popular. And I think he will be even higher owned than Mike Evans, because it's going to be a lot easier to fit. And a lot of people are going to jam in both quarterbacks. So it makes more sense to take the $2,000 discount for a guy that's going to get just about equal targets. And for a PPR slate DraftKings, he can rack up those catches quickly. And then moving on to the Ravens wide receiver group here. It's always kind of tough to play these guys because it's just not that consistent from Lamar Jackson. He's averaging under 200 passing yards per game. So it's not like there's a ton of work to go around. But Rashad Bateman's going to be your number 1 here. He's at $7,000. Devin Duvernay at $6,400. He's going to be the number 2. Although these guys, I mean, they're the number 1 and 2, but they're only playing like 50% of the snaps out there. Then you have Demarcus Robinson at $2,800, who saw around 20% of the snaps last week. Then James Prochet at $600. I believe played only around 15% of the snaps, if I remember correctly. But looking at the target distribution, Rashad Bateman, just about 5.5 targets per game, 20% target share. He'd be the guy you want. Duvernay, just under 4 targets. And then we have Demarcus Robinson just under 2.5 Prochet at 0.4. It's not pretty. I mean, I'm not going to go on my way to play any of these pass catchers. Mark Andrews is obviously the number one in this offense, but even then, last week, he saw 2 targets, didn't even catch a ball. So it's always kind of tough to trust a Ravens pass catcher, especially if your name isn't Mark Andrews, and even sometimes he can bust as well. And just with Lamar Jackson being able to run and the Ravens want to run the football, it's just, I don't know. I don't really want to go on my way to pay $7,000 for Bateman, if that makes sense. Now, will he make some tournament lineups for me? Yes, he's always got the chance for a big play. He's done that multiple times this season. Just know I would rather get to a Buccaneers pass catcher rather than a Ravens if given the choice. And then moving back over to our lineup, we're going to try to find a captain here. Like I said, I would love to get Mike Evans in, but I just don't think this is possible. I mean, okay, it's technically possible. 14:50 left. There's a couple of just complete punts that I think if they catch a ball, it might not be awful, but just for the sake of trying to get at least a little bit more balanced, let's take the $2,000 discount, or I guess in this case, $3,000 in the captain spot with Chris Godwin. That leaves us just under $3,000 left, which definitely looks a lot better. And since we do like the Buccaneers wide receivers on the slate, if you're interested over on Prize Picks, you can currently get Mike Evans and Chris Godwin around 70 receiving yards. I like the over on both. As of right now, I could not find anything on the DK Sportsbook, but I have to imagine they'll probably be in our favor here. So if you're a first-time user over on Prize Picks and you're not already signed up, you can use promo code CPEN when you do, and you can get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100 either using the link down below in the description or have it at prizepicks.com. And just make sure you use promo code CPEN because it'll help us both out. And moving on to the tight ends, we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens here first, which consists of Mark Andrews, he's the big dog here, $9,200. Then we have Isaiah Likely at $1,600, who I want to say played just about 20%, if not less, of the snaps last week. And then we had Josh Oliver, who played nearly half the snaps last week at $200. And I know if you're looking at the game log, you would think something happened to Andrews. Well, no, he played over 80% of the snaps. He just had 2 targets, didn't catch either of them, and had 1 carry for 4 yards. So we didn't completely goose egg you. And it looks like he's following the same path as last week, where he just didn't practice, although much shorter week this week on Thursday. So, and the chance that he misses, that would make Oliver and Isaiah Likely insanely good value plays. But even if Andrew plays, which that's my assumption as of right now, I still think you could play a guy like Oliver at $200. He played half the snaps last week and he had a couple of targets and he did get a catch. And you don't need much at $200. If he catches 1 ball, you are kind of happy with the output, because if you plug him in, you can do whatever the heck you want with your lineups. And on the season, averaging 4 yards per game, just under a 7% target share, just under a target per game, but it does not take much at $200 to make that work. Isaiah Likely, he's seeing about 2 targets per game on 11% target share. Mark Andrews, obviously the numbers are great. He's the second best tight end in the NFL, only behind Travis Kelce, but that price point, it's tough to get to. Obviously in the build that we're going with, it's just not going to work out. But in different builds, yeah, I'll definitely try to get to Mark Andrews, assuming he is healthy and good to go for this game. But since he played so many snaps last week, I would assume that he should be good to go. And then for the Buccaneers, I'm assuming Cameron Brate is going to be out. That's why I don't have him on here. Cameron Brate does play by chance. He is only $800. He'd be an insanely good value play, but my assumption is that he will be out. And if that's the case, Cade Otton is going to be the tight end 1 in this offense. He's $5,000, and when Cameron Brate's out, I mean, he has a decent role. I think he had like 60 yards last week. Overall, pretty decent day, around 10 fantasy points. And he plays nearly all the snaps, and being the tight end 1 for Tom Brady is always going to have some value. Then we also have Kieft. He's only $200. He played just over 20% of the snaps last week. If you're looking for another punt, you don't like Oliver, he is viable, but I'm not in love with it. And then always my favorite part of the videos, we have the defenses, we have the kickers. I'm not a big fan of the defenses on the slate, although it seems like every single time we're going to have a defense in the optimal. If I had to pick one, I would probably side with the Buccaneers here at home versus Lamar, but I'm going to have a lot of Lamar, so I don't really want that much Buccaneers defense either. So, I mean, whatever the optimizer gives me, I'm not going to try to be way underweight. I'm not going to try to be overweight. It's just whatever it gives me. If I'm even to the field, I will take it. But as far as the captain ownership goes, I probably will have none. Then for the kickers, again, kickers and defenses have been the path to success for these showdown slates. There was 33 points scored from the Bears and what was it? Just about 50 points scored in the last game on Monday night. And even then, there's a kicker in the optimal, and there's a defense in the optimal. It just seems like it happens every single time. And we have arguably the best kicker in football, Justin Tucker here at $4,000. I assume he's going to be a pretty popular play. I like him, but you really can't project kickers. If they get in field goal range and they make their field goals, they become decent value plays. If not, well, nothing you can really do about it. And moving back over to this lineup to finish it off, and please don't copy and paste this. I'm someone that builds 150. Not sure which one's going to be my favorite, so just please build your own lineups. But we have just under $3,000, so as much as I'd like to get another good player in, that's unfortunately just not going to be feasible. Now, I would like to try to get a kicker, and so if we could fit Justin Tucker, that's $1,900 left. That's not bad. So we have Isaiah Likely. I'm not likely to like him in this game, but if anything happened to Mark Andrews and he happened to be out, I mean, yeah, $1,600, he'd be like the top value play. Yeah, Brashad Perriman, you'd be lucky if you get a target there. It's kind of a gross range. I guess Likely would be the guy I want the most there. If you wanted to go the complete punt route with a guy like a Josh Oliver by chance, that would leave you $5,700 left. You could get a Julio Jones in, you could get a Cade Otton, even a Rachaad White. That looks a little bit better, but there's many paths you can go, many captains you can play, but use your own judgment and have fun with it. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I do want to run the optimizer here to see who's popping the most as of right now. And if you do want access to this, to build your own lineups and do whatever you want with it, links down below in the description for that. I do have one for NBA as well for those of you that are interested in playing that, which I do each and every single day. But we're just going to raw dog it here, straight projections, no randomness, no group settings, nothing like that. But if you are someone that actually does put 150, please make sure you set those up, which you can do here, because you need your lineups to be highly correlated. And it looks like we got our 152 crunch. Let's pop out the players tab and see who is popping. That's a lot of Mark Andrews in the flex spot. Was not imagining him popping that much, but I do like him on this slate. A lot of Tom Brady, a lot of Lamar Jackson, the captain spot over 50% of the time. Fournette, Godwin, Lamar. Yeah, not surprised at all who's popping. That's a lot of Josh Oliver, 14%. I don't know if I'd play 14%, but if you are trying to fit in all these studs, it does make sense that a couple of these punts are going to be popping quite a bit. But this is very heavily concentrated on a few players up top, and you're not getting too much out of any of the rest. So that is something to keep in mind when you do build 150. Make sure you set your exposures right, because you don't want to be too heavy specifically on a few players, because you do want to try to leverage yourself and get access to some other players to hedge yourself a bit. With that being said, that'll be it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe on your way out. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.